Buon pomeriggio a tutti, sono
Good
Francesco
afternoon.
Marangoni.
My name is Francesco Marangoni, CEO di Eufoton, medical laser. I wish to thank the organizers of this session, Mr. Bravar, I'm very grateful for this invitation, and I hope this conference will be very successful. I was asked to present my company, and since 1999, we've been working on laser treatment. In this slide, we have all the milestones and the fundamental years for us in our 20 years history. My father established the company. He was a surgeon based in Trieste. He was an expert of laser technology, together with two visionary engineers, Giorgio Marega and Alessandro Long. The first fundamental passage was the CE mark approval that was compulsory for the electronic and medical equipment, and since then we had a series of European licenses, and in 2010 there was the FDA approval for a number of surgical applications. What you see here in this slide, you see, well, my father and all the marks and the main equipment that we produce. We exclusively focus on solid sound technologies, semiconductors, and we focus on the optical connection of these semiconductors to different kinds of optical fibers. We have over 10 wavelengths, 60 types of certified optical fiber. I could talk for a whole day about lasers, starting from the basics until medicines, but in my opinion, in the medical and clinical sectors and in surgery, the most important definition was provided in 1994 by an American dermatologist, Dr. Parrish, and he said that laser and other light sources is like music and noise. There are so many types of lasers. It is absolutely impossible to focus on a particular wavelength and without actually taking into account the active means whereby this light source is applied. Obviously, there's a technology evolution in optics and the semiconductors. So in the 60s, for instance, some equipment were as big as actual rooms, and now they are as small as a cigarette packages. The fundamental concept for the laser theory in terms of selective light is pure colors and complementary colors. So if we want to obtain some biological impact on human tissues, the notion that we have to apply is selective photothermolysis is based on the elective absorption of pure colors on its complementary colors. When we were kids, we were taught how to mix colors at nursery schools or at primary schools, and It is the same here in terms of absorption, and we have the 7 basic colors and the complementary colors. We exclusively focus on specific equipment based on semiconductors, and except for green and blue, 95% it is based on near infrared. We are particularly skillful of interacting with optic fibers and manipulating wavelength starting from 680 up to 1700 nanometers. The equipment that we produce and sell are surgical equipment, and they are used for a selective surgery. It is a programmable surgery, and it actually destroys the complementary parts. Why semiconductors and solid lasers and not lamps over crystals? Because the reason is quite simple. That is the conversion performance. In the past, the argon and krypton had they would absorb energy for 1,000 watts, and the output 1 watt of energy, optical energy. So we got 60% of carbon dioxide in the 90s. The power diodes today have a performance of 60%. 100 watt is taken and 100 watt is produced. Clearly, this technology enables to reduce the size. In the medicine, we can have surgical or medical treatment applications, as you can see here. Of course, we focus on high power, so we are more active in the surgical part and less in the medical part, because the power can be lower. As I said, besides semiconductor, a significant part of the company focuses on the treatment of optical fiber. We have over 70 different models. They can be identified on the basis of common features. These features are the 3 entities, the core, the cladding, the first lining, and the jacket in silicon. These 3 components together results into a folding exceeding 360 degrees. Besides the composition of fibers, it must be noted that there's a work supporting the mapping of the distal part of the optical fiber. And as you can see, depending on the medical or surgical application, there can be a wide variety of shapes. Clearly, probes must have 100% emission, and medical clinical operators must be able to assess the efficiency, avoiding any fissuration that may lead to an explosion danger. We have 4 main types of optical fibers, and these main components are mixed differently depending on the conductibility and the actual application in terms of reuse. There are probes that are disposable and endovasal endoluminal probes, whereas for other probes for this superficial surgery, they may be used again, but they all have a common element, the core, that is the transport photonic vector, and in any case it is silica. One of the fundamental landmarks is based on an infrared application for the treatment of refluent vases. That is this technology, and this is used for varicose veins, and this uses a uniform energy impacting on the wall of the actual vein. This is the actual picture of the photonic impact. Another patent of the company is the interconnection of fibers. We used an acronym. It is patented fiber-to-fiber system. It is based on the coding of the possibility to insert some disposable fiber to a wire, which can be used many times. This system is clearly reducing costs in surgery, especially for local applications, especially for limited procedures, not exceeding 30 centimeters. All these probes can resist to different temperatures, like for the simple hyperthermia that is reversible to the incandescent that actually results into the solid vaporization. These technologies achieve very high temperatures, and you can also adjust laser emission with the temperatures that are slightly higher than actual temperature. Just to summarize, in the dermatology, surgery, and ophthalmology, we've been using our technology since the 80s with a area that does not exceed 1 millimeter. It is very accurate, and the same radiation used with the different optical fibers in defocused modality with low power are applied globally to reduce edema, fluorosis, algae, and to support the vascularization. This kind of surgery is selective to colors that can be either natural or exogenous or artificial, as you can see. And these are molecules absorbing photons, and they are excited with effects that are dose dependent. In the body, there's not just chromophore, there are billions, and therefore the actual presence of several chromophores on the same target increases the turbidity of the tissue with a reduction of transparency and selectivity and penetration of the laser. Our culture is, our know-how is to adjust that as and reducing the losses due to the turbidity of the tissue. These are quite the basic notions for experts of lasers on biological tissues. This is a macro classification of non-selective wavelengths. This is a diagram. On the left-hand side, you see the radiation and wavelengths in nanometers and associated to the penetration in millimeter on a just healthy epithelium. On the right-hand side, you have the different types of vases that can interact with these wavelengths. What is important here that there are some superficial and deep vases, and the highest exposure of the transdermic life is between 4 and 6 millimeters of the superficial hypodermis. So 4 millimeters in terms of penetration in a thermal system with different results. This is an example of a procedure. It is minimally invasive, and it is an outpatient procedure. And here you just get into the vein. This is the Seldinger probe in the vase, and there's you see there's just anesthesia, but it's limited, local, so it can be performed in an outpatient setting, and here there's an immediate closing of the vase. And up until a few years ago, this required a surgery, ablative surgery. This is an example of an application which is much more superficial for aesthetic reasons. The treatment of superficial vascular anomalies for the skin, as you can see here. There's a selective photocoagulation in the skin, and in this case you can do it in arms or legs to close capillaries for aesthetic reasons. With today laser lights, you can apply these treatments both in the body, as I showed you before, and outside the body, as you can see here. These procedures are quite limited in terms of pain, and this is mitigated with the cooling system, so the patient can tolerate the treatment. Here you see the outcomes, and this is the cleaning of the skin. Here you have a list of our social networks and our websites. If you have any question or request, you can get in touch with us through our social networks or through our website. Thank you very much for your attention, and